Right, hello everyone, and welcome along to the Diesel Arsenal channel. We are a bit sorry, I'm a bit sorry that there was some technical issues at the start, and we're a bit late getting started. But I hope it's not going to spoil your enjoyment of the show that we got lined up for you. It's tonight we're going to talk about the Roswell incident. So I hope you're going to enjoy that and find it interesting. It's a personal favourite of mine. So I'm sure it's going to provoke a lot of thought. Well, I hope it does anyway. And just before we get started, please can I remind everyone, please put a like on the video. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Diesel Arsenal channel. And also please come over and subscribe to me. My channel's called Warren's Team Talk. And on my channel, I talk about Arsenal, football in general. I don't do this stuff. This is the only channel where I do this stuff. So that's, yeah. So, come and check me out. Like I say, the channel name is Warren's Team Talk. And tonight we're going to talk about the Roswell incident. So let's get on with it. So first of all, let me just... Right. Okay. So what we're going to do, first of all, I'm going to quickly explain to you what's going to be discussed tonight. Okay. So the things we're going to go through, we're going to do an introduction, obviously, which we've already started. We're going to talk about what the Roswell incident was, where it happened, what was the backstory, because there's a backstory that's important that we talk about in order that you get the context of what happened at the time. Then we're going to talk about what it was that is alleged to have happened over a course of a few days in Roswell, New Mexico. What is the official explanation for what happened from the US government? And what are the alternative explanations? Then we're going to talk a little bit about a phenomenon called Men in Black. Now, probably a lot of you are aware of the film, the Hollywood film, Men in Black. The real Men in Black, let me tell you, are nothing like that, right? The only similarity is that they wear black suits, right? The rest of it, they're very, very sinister, but we'll go into more about that later. Then we're going to talk about back-engineered technology and weapon systems, links to the Bob Lazar story, some other alleged UFO crashes, the Roswell incident in popular culture, what my thoughts are on it, and where you can find out more. And then we'll bring it to an end. So I hope that's okay. I hope it's going to be enjoyable for you. Just before we get started, let's have a quick look at some of the chats. Roswell incident in 1947, recovery balloon debris from a ranch near Corona, New Mexico, says Craig, AFC 87. Yeah, that's more or less it, mate. There's a bit more to it than that. Daryl Denton says, what is it with America and cover-ups? Yeah, well, exactly. You won't get an argument from me about that one, that's for sure. Jez says, no problems, mate. It happens. Thank you, Jez. I really appreciate that. Mike England says, good evening, Warren, Jez, Craig, and Daryl. Yeah, good evening to you too, Mike. Craig, AFC 87. Evening, Mike. And then I did put a video in for you to watch while you were waiting so that you wouldn't get too bored waiting for me. But never mind. David Dunder says, morning all. Good morning to you as well, David. Mike England says, hi, David. And Jez says, Mike England. Very good evening, mate. And Carlos Edwards, I'm looking forward to this, Warren. Yeah, so am I, mate. It's going to be a good one. Right, so without further ado and me waffling on too much more, let's get into it. So what was it? What was the Roswell incident? So the Roswell incident is probably one of the most controversial and famous incidents in the history of ufology. Basically, what happened on the 7th of July, 1947, 75 years ago, last Thursday, 75 miles north of Roswell in New Mexico, debris was recovered on a ranch during a particularly powerful storm, which some claim was of a crashed alien spacecraft. And the US government, although initially claiming it was a flying disc, then quickly changed its story in the same day, actually, and claimed it was a crashed weather balloon. And then since then, the official explanation has changed again. And we are now led to believe that it was a wreckage of a balloon used in a top secret US government project to monitor the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons tests. So that's basically the what happened in a nutshell. So yeah, guys, please don't forget to subscribe to Diesel Arsenal, and while you're at it, please subscribe to my channel, Warren's Team Talk. That'd be fantastic if you can do that, and put likes on all our videos for us if you don't mind. I'd absolutely love it if you could do that. Thank you. Right, so where did the Roswell incident happen? So basically, this is a map showing you roughly where it was. There's a little black thing there. It says Roswell NM. So that just shows you roughly the location in the United States. And then you've got, all right, on the actual site of the incident, there currently is this situation. They've sort of built this sort of stuff there to commemorate the crash. So there's looks like there's a slab there. I've never been there myself, unfortunately. I'd love to go and have a look. But then there's like that stuff like stacked up rocks and what have you, and then a slab where it's got some comments about the incident. So that just gives you enough rough idea about what's there. So next thing, please subscribe to Diesel Arsenal and to Warren's Team Talk. That'd be great. Now, what was the backstory? Now, this is quite interesting, really, because it's worth mentioning at this stage that in 1947, the United States and other countries around the world were in the midst of a flying saucer craze, as people were reported seeing strange objects in the sky that they claimed were spacecraft piloted by aliens, and these sightings were coming in thick and fast around that time as well. So, and before we go any further, Randy has put in a super chat. So thank you very much for that, Randy. That will, I'm sure that Diesel will be absolutely delighted for that, and he'll get a nice big juicy steak with it or something, I'm sure. So yeah, thank you very much, Randy. That's very much appreciated. Now let's move on. So yeah, basically at this time there was a huge upsurge in sightings of UFOs, and it wasn't just in the United States, it was all around the whole world. And in fact, in the last 6 months of 1947, there were 300 reported UFO sightings in the United States alone, I believe. Then on the 24th of June 1947, a pilot by the name of Kenneth Arnold claimed to have seen 9 unidentified objects flying like a saucer would across water near Mount Rainier in Washington. And that's where the term flying saucer came from, because that's how he described it. they weren't actually discs that he saw. Actually, it was like the object that he saw was actually a crescent shape. You can probably just about make it out in that image there that's on the screen. So yeah, there weren't discs at that time, but the most popular sort of seen unidentified flying object is obviously the classic disc shape. Now, it should also be pointed out. Oh, hold on, there's something else I wanted to tell you here. Arnold, the pilot, Kenneth Arnold, also estimated that the objects were flying around 1,200 miles per hour, which is just over 1,900 kilometers an hour. And Arnold was reported as saying that in the eastern Oregon, was reported as saying that in the eastern Oregon at the time. But at the time, there were no known craft that could reach those speeds. So these things were flying in a manner which was completely alien to us, if you forgive the pun. But yeah, they were they were doing stuff that our aircraft couldn't. So the Air Force said also at the time they had no new experimental planes or guided missiles that would fit such a description. And according to a US Department of Defense report, that story became front page news, and the term flying saucer was born, despite Arnold describing the flying objects as crescent shape, according to the New Scientist. So this is why this chap, Kenneth Arnold, is known as the grandfather of modern ufology. The county soon became gripped by the sightings, and by the 7th of July, policemen and astronomers across the eastern United States were reportedly being harassed for further reports. So yeah, people were getting really excited about it, and there were lots of reported sightings. So, and by now there was talk of a reward as well for anyone who recovered one of these unidentified flying objects. And remember when we were talking about the Loch Ness Monster as well? That happened there when that Loch Ness Monster craze was going through northwest Scotland. That there was there was talk about a reward being offered for anyone who could capture the beast and stuff like that. So this is what happened in the States with these flying objects. So if we move on, it should also be noted that there is a theory which states that the upsurge in UFO sightings at this time was due to the USA dropping 2 nuclear weapons on Japan at the end of World War II. And these bombs being dropped sent out to the outskirts of our galaxy like a signal or like a disturbance. And it basically sent out something saying that we discovered nuclear weapons, and that the UFO sightings at that time were aliens coming here to keep a close eye on us, and if necessary to step in and stop us from destroying ourselves and destroying our planet. Now, there are reports as well, like moving forward in the history of our planet, that aliens have come here and interfered with nuclear weapons at different times. They've come in and there's been lights in the sky, and then the nuclear weapons have like powered down and they've become completely inoperable, which, it's a bit of a worry that they're able to come in there and just fly around with impunity and just disable our most highly technologically advanced weaponry like that. If we ever got into a conflict situation, it probably sounds like they wouldn't last too long, to be quite honest. But there you go. So as you can see, there's just an image here to show you where we are roughly in our galaxy. We're right on the outskirts, and as those of you who are Star Wars fans will know, that area is called the Outer Rim. That's what I called it. But yeah, so we're right on the outskirts of the galaxy, and what the theory claims is that when those bombs were dropped, it sent off a message through the galaxy to let everyone know that we'd found nuclear weapons, and that the UFO sightings were because aliens were coming here to check on us and make sure we didn't do anything stupid. So if we move on now, so what actually happened in Roswell in 1947? So what happened was a guy named Mac Brazel, who was a worker on the ranch, gathered up some of the debris that he discovered on the ranch and went into the local town of Roswell and told the sheriff George Wilcox about his discovery. And the sheriff then immediately contacted Colonel Butch Blanchard of the United States Army Air Force, which was the predecessor of the United States Air Force. This guy then immediately sent agents to visit the ranch and assigned the case to a Major Jesse Marcel. However, before this happened, the local press found out about the story. Now, it is then... Oh, hold on. So that just shows a sequence of events. Well, we'll go into that in a bit more detail. So this is an alleged picture of the crash site at Foster Ranch near Roswell in New Mexico on the 14th of June. Apparently, the crash happened on the 14th of June, and then there's some days passed before it finally got reported. So, yeah, so where are we? Anyway, so yeah, Matt Brazel took some of the debris and told the sheriff in Roswell about his discovery. Then they contacted Colonel Butch Blanchard, and then Colonel Butch Blanchard immediately sent agents to visit the ranch and assigned the case to Major Jesse Marcel. And then Major Jesse Marcel and Mac Brazel returned to the site and gathered up more debris, which the Major took home. So, oh, so where are we? Sorry, guys. The sheriff immediately contacted Colonel Butch Blanchard of the United States Army Air Force, which was the predecessor of the United States Air Force. He then immediately sent agents to the ranch and assigned the case to Major Jesse Marcel. However, before this happened, the local press found out about the story. It is then alleged that Major Jesse Marcel and Mac Brazel returned to the site and gathered up more debris, which the Major took home with him. Then the next day, on 8th of July, Major Marcel took the material to his base commander, Colonel Butch Blanchard, who then reported it to General Roger Ramey at Fort Worth Army Airfield, and he ordered that all the material be flown immediately to Fort Worth Army Airfield. Then a press release was issued by the Roswell Army Airfield, which stated that the US government had recovered a flying disc, which had landed on a ranch near Roswell. Well, it didn't crash, guys. It didn't land. It crashed. And the press release basically said that the many rumours regarding the flying disc became a reality yesterday when the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force Roswell Cooperation Army Airfield was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through the cooperation of the local ranchers and the sheriff's office of Chaves County. The flying object landed on a ranch near Roswell sometime last week. Not having phone facilities, the rancher stored the disc until such time he was able to contact the sheriff's office, who in turn notified Major Jesse A. Marcel of the 509th Bomb Group Intelligence Office. An action was immediately taken and the disc was picked up at the rancher's home. It was inspected at the Roswell Army Airfield and subsequently loaned by Major Marcel to higher headquarters. So, this is when we then get this newspaper article come out. And as you can see, it's the Roswell Daily Record, and it quite clearly says on there that the Roswell Army Airfield have captured a flying saucer on a ranch in the Roswell region. So, there you go. However, later in the day, as government scientists arrived in the area, the story started to change again. And a press conference was then held, and it was stated instead that a weather balloon had crashed. Reporters were shown debris said to be taken from the crash area, such as foil, rubber, and wood, which appeared to confirm that the object had been a weather balloon. And Major Jesse Marcel was forced to pose with debris of the weather balloon. Now, on the 9th of July, the Roswell Daily Record then ran a front page story in which Mac Brazel claimed that the wreckage was nothing more than rubber strips, tin foil, a rather tough paper, and sticks consistent with that of a weather balloon. To be honest, though, I personally find it extremely hard to believe that a major in the United States Air Force would not be able to recognize debris which was from a weather balloon with something more extravagant. I just find it difficult to believe. I just find it unbelievable, really. I'm not sure that I don't believe it. I just don't. So then the story went quiet for a number of years. And then in 1994, the US government story changed again. And on this occasion, they claimed that the balloon was part of a top secret program called Project Mogul. When the aim of this project was that it sought to detect the Soviet Union's nuclear bomb tests. So it was a way for the Americans to keep an eye on what the Soviets were up to with their nuclear bomb testing. Then, to the allegations that alien bodies were found at the site, the US government claimed that these reports can be explained by the use of test crash dummies, which were used to test the effects of high altitude free fall with the use of dummies from high altitude balloons. So, and these are example of these test crash dummies. Now, the thing is, these test crash dummies were the height of normal men, so they'd be about 6 foot, right? And all the people who claim to have seen bodies at the site, and there was a lot of them, claim that the bodies they saw were all very small, about between 3 and 4 feet tall. So more inconsistencies really, and it's a bit just doesn't add up. So yeah, guys, please don't forget to subscribe to Diesel Arsenal if you haven't already, and also to my channel, Warren's Team Talk. And so let's move on now and look at what the official government explanation was. So the official explanation of the incident has so far changed 3 times, which for me only serves to undermine the chances of the government being taken seriously with this one. First of all, there was a press release, as we saw, that stated that the Roswell Army airfield had recovered a flying disc. And then very quickly after that, there was a further press release retracting that statement. Secondly, the US government claimed that it was what was recovered at Roswell was nothing more than a crashed weather balloon. Then in 1994, the US government admitted that the weather balloon story was in fact a cover story for the balloon debris, which was that of a balloon which was part of the top secret US Project Mogul program, which, as we said, was a program to monitor the Soviet Union's nuclear weapon tests. And that the alleged alien bodies that were found at the site were test crash dummies used to test the effects of high altitude freefall parachute jumps from high altitude balloons. Now, in 1997, the US government released another report regarding the Roswell incident entitled The Roswell Report, Case Closed. Well, sorry guys, it ain't closed as far as I'm concerned. In which they claimed that the records regarding the Roswell incident held at Roswell Air Force Base between January and October 1947. Now hold on to your hats, because this for me absolutely sealed it, right? Were destroyed. And it is also claimed that the person who had done so and the person's organisation which had instructed them to do so were not known. It just, right, stories changing, stuff going missing, bodies being twice the size of what all the eyewitnesses are saying there were, evidence being destroyed. Jesus Christ. If this was a murder case, that person would be looking at a 40-year stretch in a high security prison. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, what are the alternative theories to explain the Roswell incident? Right, these mostly all stem from the original press release, which the United States government originally released, which stated that they were in possession of a recovered alien spacecraft that had crashed in the desert some 75 miles north of Roswell, New Mexico, on the night of the 7th of July 1947 during a particularly violent storm. Now, it should also be remembered that in excess of 600 people claim to have witnessed the event at Roswell, and that this group of people ranges from average everyday civilians to high-ranking military officials, which is interesting because if you think about it, if 600 plus people had witnessed a murder and they were all giving more or less the same details about the murder, how many people would seriously doubt that they weren't all telling the truth? And would the murder case attract the same level of skepticism as the Roswell incident has seemingly done over the years? I tend to think it probably wouldn't. The story seemed to die a death for a number of years, about 30 odd years, in fact, until it re-emerged when Jesse Marcel was interviewed by numerous individuals and organisations who were taking an interest in his story between February 1978 and 1980. Now, one of these such interviews was when Jesse Marcel was interviewed by nuclear physicist and UFO researcher Stanton Friedman. And in addition, he was also interviewed by the National Enquirer and a TV show known as In Search Of. Now, on the 25th of September 1980, this TV show aired an interview where Marcel described his participation in the 1947 press conference, and it is claimed that he stated, "There were some comments from me. They wanted some comments from me, but I wasn't at liberty to do that. So all I could do is keep my mouth shut. And General Ramey is the only one who discussed. And General Ramey is the only one who discussed it. Told the newspapers, the newsmen, what it was, and to forget about it. It is nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, we both knew differently." Marcel's statements were discredited because it is claimed that they contradicted those that he'd made to the press in 1947. And what I'd say in response to that, to be honest, guys, is how many people can you think that would remember exactly what they'd said something like 30 odd years before? I just find that a bit crazy, to be honest. Especially when you're being pressurized to say something that you feel uncomfortable about and that you feel isn't necessarily what you actually remember as being the facts of the case. In another interview, Jesse Marcel was quoted as saying, "I felt that you had nothing it felt like you had nothing in your hands." Now, he's talking about materials that were found at the site, and he said, "It felt like you had nothing in your hands. It wasn't any thicker than the foil out of a pack of cigarettes. But the thing about it that got me is that you couldn't even bend it. You couldn't dent it, and even a sledgehammer would just bounce straight off it. I knew that I'd never seen anything like that before, and it was not anything from this earth. And I'm quite sure of, and that I'm quite sure of. Being an intelligence officer, I was familiar with just about all material used in aircraft and or air travel, and it was nothing like any of that. It couldn't have been." Then, interestingly, Jesse Marcel consistently denied the presence of bodies and at the alleged crash site. So then a book was released in 1980 entitled The Roswell Incident, written by James Barrett and William Moore. And in this book was where they first made claims of alien bodies associated with the Roswell incident. The book claims that an alien craft was flying over the New Mexico desert, observing US nuclear weapons activity, but crashed after being hit by lightning, killing the aliens on board, which led to a government cover-up. Then in 1992, Stanton Friedman released a book called Crash at Corona, which he co-authored with Don Berliner. The book introduced new witnesses and also claimed that there were in fact 2 alien spacecraft and 8 aliens, and that 2 of them are said to have survived and had been taken into custody by the government. So, in 1994, Randall and Schmidt authored another book, The Truth About UFO Crash at Roswell, which included a claim that alien bodies were taken by a cargo plane to be viewed by Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, interestingly, it is later claimed that in 1954, Eisenhower and the US government had up to 3 meetings at Holloman Air Force Base with aliens. And in 1995, film footage which claims to show an alien autopsy claimed to have been taken by a US military official shortly after the Roswell incident was released by Ray Santilli, a London-based video entrepreneur. The footage caused an international sensation, and when it aired on television networks around the world. And Santilli admitted, though, in 2006 that the film was mostly a reconstruction, but continued to claim it was based on genuine footage now lost, and that some original frames had been supposedly survived. In 2011, American journalist Annie Jacobson, which was the video clip I put in the chat earlier when we were waiting to get started because of the technical issues, released a book called Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Secret Military Base. And in this book, she made a claim that Joseph Mengele, a German SS officer and a doctor at Auschwitz, the Nazi prisoner of war camp, was recruited by Soviet leader Joseph Stalin to produce grotesque child-sized avatars to be remotely piloted and land in America in order to cause hysteria similar to Orson Welles' The War of the Worlds in 1938. Now, those of you who don't know, 1938, Orson Welles did this radio show entitled The War of the Worlds, and not everyone heard the beginning of it, and he did the story like it was breaking news, and it caused absolute panic and pandemonium in America when it aired on the radio. So where are we? Hold on. And Annie Jacobson also claimed that on the Joe Rogan Experience, when being interviewed by Joe Rogan, that these children were disabled and that had been genetically modified by Joseph Mengele to look like their traditional grey aliens. Which obviously, that's absolutely disgusting. But if Joseph Mengele is involved with it, it doesn't surprise me. Anyway, so the real Men in Black. Now, I just want to point out that the real Men in Black have a big part to play in this story. And I would also like to point out that the real Men in Black are not as they are portrayed in the Hollywood movie. They are a very sinister and disturbing group of individuals who use threats of violence, threats of being disappeared, and murder to ensure that people who know too much, particularly about alien activity and or government involvement in this activity are persuaded to keep quiet and not discuss what they know or think what they know. All right. So it's not like the only similarity between the real Men in Black, as I said earlier, and the ones in those Hollywood films where one of them is played by Will Smith is the fact that they wear black suits. Most of the time they have dark sunglasses as well, and like I say, they're extremely sinister. Now, with regards to this case, it has been reported that the mysterious government officials have visited people who were known to have witnessed the Roswell incident and warned them that unless they kept quiet about what they had seen, there would be the gravest of consequences for them, their families and loved ones, including death and having their lives destroyed, etc. Other witnesses claimed that their properties were ransacked, and it is believed that the perpetrators were looking for materials that they believed these individuals held from the crash site. It's also claimed that these shadowy government figures also forced individuals who made statements claiming they had witnessed the incidents to withdraw their statements or make new statements claiming that they had not seen anything or what they had seen was in line with the government narrative. And one particular victim was reminded, whilst they were, whilst the Men in Black were pointing at the desert, in rather a menacing happening. By rather menacingly tapping a large metal rod in the palm of their hands, that the desert is a very large, desolate place. And if you or any of your family or loved ones were to get lost in that desert, no one would ever find you ever again. And I would suggest it's a very good place to dispose of things that you don't want to be found. So this is sort of carry on that these officials would get up to. And then they would turn around and say, I'll be making ourselves clear, just to reinforce the point. These accusations have been verified by the stepdaughter of Colonel Hunter G. Penn, who it is claimed that admitted to her that he was instructed to enforce an information blackout with a focus on the little bodies, and was authorized to use physical force and weapons to achieve this goal if necessary. Now, let's move on and look at reverse engineering. So back engineering technology and weapon systems. It is claimed that as a consequence of the Roswell incident in 1947 and the debris that was recovered, the US government was able to set in motion a program of back engineering alien technology. And some of the items that we have been able to produce as a consequence are microchips, touchscreen phones, and tablets. And also this beast, the United States Air Force stealth aircraft. This aspect of Roswell's story also has links to the Bob Lazar story, as he claims he worked on the top secret American military base called S4, and where he was working on trying to back engineer parts of a recovered alien spacecraft, and in his particular case, the propulsion system. That was the bit of the craft that he was working on. So let's have a look at some other UFO alleged crashes around the world. Down the years, there have been other claims of crashed UFOs from all over the world, and two good examples of these cases are the 1908 Tunguska event. Now, this was when in 1908, a large meteor crashed into the Siberian forest in a region known as Tunguska, covering an area of roughly 800 square miles. However, some are now claiming that this was, in fact, a crashed UFO. Then there was the highly respected astrophysicist Avi Loeb, claims that an interstellar object crashed on Earth in 2014. And it was some form of spacecraft that had been, and it has been confirmed by the US Space Command that the object came from another star system. The space agency concluded the object, which streaked across the sky off the coast of Manus Island, Papua New Guinea, was a meteor, but Professor Loeb, however, disagrees, and he has claimed that the object could have been built by extraterrestrials. So let's have a look at the Roswell incident in popular culture. So the Roswell incident in popular culture, obviously the big one, the X-Files, constantly referred to the Roswell incident, and most of its story lines, but I do not remember one particular episode that solely referred to it. They just referred to it in passing throughout the whole series. In the 1996 film Independence Day, it refers to the Roswell incident as a cover-up, which was even withheld from the US president. In the film, it has a mad scientist type character who is working on trying to back engineer an alien spacecraft, which, if I remember correctly, they claim that they had recovered from the Roswell incident. And it also shows the US president having a conversation with an alien which is being held by the US government. And that conversation was done telepathically, and it seriously messed up the US president. Then Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I know that the film claims that the crystal skulls were representations of alien skulls, but they are not clearly human skulls, and there is an alien creature, but I do not remember any reference to the Roswell incident in this film. I might be wrong, but I don't remember it. And it should also be pointed out that the real crystal skulls do not look alien at all. They're human skulls. Now, the one that's on the picture, this film is, anyone who hasn't seen this film, go and watch it. It is hilarious. Paul is a fantastic film, in my humble opinion. It was made in 2011, and it tells the story of two British tourists traveling across the United States in a camper van who pick up and befriend a runaway alien named Paul, who originally crash-landed on Earth in the Roswell incident. Paul has disgusting habits and learns typical British guy's behaviour. So he's just the average British guy behaving badly, basically. And it is absolutely hilarious. I love the film, and I thoroughly recommend it. So, what are my thoughts? And there you can see me pondering it. Now, my thoughts on the Roswell incident are that, for me, it's clearly a cover-up, and I do believe an alien spacecraft did crash in the desert, and the American government did recover the debris and there were survivors. However, from what I've read, the survivors did not last very long. And the recovered materials have allegedly helped us to develop new technologies such as touchscreen, handheld devices, the US stealth fighter, and were originally created using back-engineered alien technology. The aircraft, to me, is so far out of left field, it is ridiculous. I mean, if you look at it, it doesn't even look like anything we've ever produced before. And so, for that reason, I don't really see a logical progression towards that aircraft. It's completely off the scale. There is also an allegation that the photography taken of Major Jesse Marcel with the alleged recovered crash site materials are not the original crash site materials, and they were replaced with wreckage of a weather balloon. This claim is vindicated by the fact that Roswell Army Airfield's Public Information Officer, Lieutenant Walter G. Holt, wrote a sealed statement that was only to be opened after his death. And in this statement, he claims that the photography taken with Major Jesse Marcel was in fact a hoax, and what happened was that the actual crash materials were substituted with weather balloon materials and then photographed with Jesse Marcel. In addition to this, Major General Lawrence C. Coyg, who was chief of the engineering division, and he was flown by his personal pilot, Ben Games, from his base at Wright Field Air Force to personally examine the retrieved materials. And after this inspection, he was flown by his pilot again to meet with President Truman at Washington, D.C. And a few months later, he then went on to assume the role of Director of Research and Development. And whilst in this role, he set up Project Sign, which was the first official investigation by the US government into the UFO phenomenon. Also, the witnesses of the incident, including high-ranking military officials, are consistent in their description of the bodies at the crash site, describing them as between 3.5 and 4 feet tall, with large heads and oversized eyes, small holes for the nose, and a tiny slit for the mouth. So, for those of you who don't know about feet and inches, 3.5 foot, 4 foot is just over a meter tall, roughly. Okay. In 2008, Sergeant William C. Ennis, who was a flight engineer stationed at one of the primary hangars which received the materials from the crash site, came out and changed his story regarding the incident, and up until this point has always claimed that debris found was merely a weather balloon. However, in 2008, he stated it was a spaceship. After all these years, I still don't know how that ship flew, and there was no engine. And before I go, I would like to know. So he was saying basically that before he pops his clogs or dies or whatever you want to call it, he wanted to know how that thing flew. There is also an allegation that the crash materials contained something that was described by over 24 witnesses, including civilians and high-ranking military officials, as memory metal, and as was described as being weightless, smooth, thin, and something which could not be cut, scratched, or burned. where are we? There. It was also reported that this metal could be screwed up in the palm of a human hand, and then when you released your hand from gripping the materials, it would assume its original shape and size within a few seconds. I personally find it extremely hard to believe that Major Jesse Marcel, who major in the United States Air Force and had gone on record as saying he was well versed in all materials used in aircraft and or air travel, would not be able to recognize debris from a simple weather balloon and continue these and confuse these materials from those used in a flying object of unknown origin. Major Jesse Marcel was also a graduate from the Army's Air Force Training Command in radar technology. Also at the time, he was quoted as saying, "All I could do was keep my mouth shut," and that it was General Rainey was the one who told the newsmen that it was what it was and to forget about it. It was nothing more than a weather observation balloon. Of course, we both knew differently. When you consider the amount of times that the US government has changed its story with regards to this case and the other nefarious activities that have had a hand in it, it is clear to me that there's been a massive cover-up of what they are trying, but what they're trying to cover up is another question entirely. I don't believe that what they're trying to cover. I don't believe that what they have been trying to cover up for the last 75 years was a weather balloon, and they've openly admitted that it wasn't. They have since also claimed that the debris that was recovered at the alleged crash site was top secret weather balloon used to monitor the Soviet Union's nuclear weapons testing, and the reports of bodies found at that crash site were crash test dummies. Crash test dummies, which, oh, hold on, I've lost myself here. Yeah, crash test dummies, which the US government were using to test the effects of high altitude drops on humans. I'm sorry, but I just do not believe this explanation either. I would also at this point like to point out that I do believe in aliens, and I believe that they have been involved in our development since our planet was first created, and there are many hundreds of reasons why I believe this, and I'm going to just give you two of them tonight. The first one is that it's widely believed that humans first appeared on our planet about 200,000 years ago, and we didn't really develop as a species. Then suddenly, between about 40 and 50,000 years ago, we suddenly took a massive leap forward, and no one seems to know why this happened or what was responsible for that happening. I personally believe it was because of extraterrestrial manipulation of our DNA. That's what I think it was. But no one seems to be able to prove one way or the other what it was, and no one seems to know. And this suggestion is supported by none other than the late, great Stephen Hawking. And our galaxy alone has more star systems, i.e. suns like ours, in it than there are grains of sand on our planet. If you then consider that each one of these star systems has a system of planets orbiting them, like our sun does, then it is highly likely that our galaxy is literally teeming with life. So what do I think happened at Roswell? I do believe that it's highly likely that an alien spaceship did crash land, but I also believe that it's highly likely it could possibly be something equally as worrying. But what that something else is anyone's guess. The big problem with the alien hypothesis is the vast distances that the alien civilization would have to travel in order to get here. For example, let's just assume that the civilization which sent the spacecraft, which crash landed on Roswell, was the same one as that Bob Lazar claimed it was from the Zeta Reticuli star system. Then if that's the case, it would take that civilization 30 Earth years to reach the planet Earth, traveling at the speed of light, which is 1.07 billion kilometers an hour, or circa 670 million miles per hour. To put that in perspective, if you had a craft, right, that could travel at the speed of light, you could travel around the world 7.5 times in 1 second. Whereas a person traveling in a craft at an average speed of 800 kilometers an hour or 500 miles per hour would take over 50 hours to go around the planet just once. Now, according to our modern science, it is impossible to travel faster than the speed of light. And for us to get a spacecraft that would travel at that speed would take far more energy than is available to us. So therefore, it clearly means that if it was an alien spaceship that crash landed at Roswell, then the civilization had technology which is far superior to anything that we have had. And the other explanation that I think could explain it is that the US government is using the UFO phenomena to cover up something far more sinister. And this is something that I've gone backwards and forwards with in my head for about the last 15 years or so, I guess. Don't forget that this was just 2 years after the end of World War II. And at this time, the US took circa 1,600 Nazi scientists, including Werner von Braun, to the US to work on top secret projects such as the US space program. And as we know, as we have already seen, that there is a theory that there was a crashed craft of Roswell which contained genetically modified disabled children, which could have been originated in the Soviet Union, or it could have come from the US. So the big question for me is, if it was an alien spacecraft, then why don't the US government just come out and say that so? And the reason for that could be because, one, the American government are worried that it would spark panic, massive panic amongst its people and people around the world if they publicly admitted that an alien spacecraft had crashed in its territory, and that craft of unknown origin with seemingly vastly superior technology to what the US, arguably the most powerful military power in the world, had, was entering and flying around in US airspace with impunity, and that the US government seemed powerless to stop it. Secondly, they are worried about the effect that this would have on the pillars of society, such as religions and economies, and both in the US and around the world. And thirdly, the US would not want the adversaries or even current friends of the United States to have access to this technology, because any state that had technology of that level would literally be able to impose its will on anyone else on the planet. And it would obviously put in any state that had that technology that is of this sort is unreachable, an incredible level of strength compared with others. So they would just become invincible on the battlefield. So the That's what I think. You may disagree. That's absolutely fine. But please put in the comments section what you think happened and what you think are the explanations, what you thought about my take on it, what you thought about the video, and where can you find out more? Right, so tomorrow I'm going to upload a video on my channel, Warren's Team Talk, and in that video, it's going to be a very short video. I'm just going to give you a list of different things that you can possibly look at, that will give you more information about the Roswell incident, because for me it's an absolutely fascinating story, and like I said, I'm like 95% convinced that it's a cover-up and that something crash landed there. What it was that was crash landed, not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it was an alien spaceship. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed that. We've looked at all different things to do with this story. And before I go, please don't forget to subscribe to Diesel Arsenal's YouTube channel and also to mine, Warren's Team Talk. Please don't forget to put a like on the video. And also, please don't forget to go and check out the Guendouzi Trust, an excellent charity that provides opportunities for disadvantaged kids to go and watch football matches at the Arsenal. So yeah, please go and check that out. It's really worthwhile and excellent charity. So yeah, that's the end of my little show. I hope you've enjoyed it. Be back in about 2 weeks' time with another one. Not 100% sure what we're going to do, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I just want to give big thank you and big up to Mr. Diesel for letting me come on his channel and talk to you guys about this. So thanks very much, guys, for listening. Like I say, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, whatever you're doing. Please take care of yourselves and look after each other and share some love and kindness around the world. And I look forward to seeing you all again really soon. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care and keep your eyes on the skies, yeah? Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Bye.